Hello students, today we are going to talk about the calendar. Open your books at page 52. Let's start with vocabulary words. Listen to them, repeat and write down in your vocabularies.
Bicentennial, biennial,
body,
counterpart, decennial, derived from, eon, epoch, era,
evolve,
fortnight, leap second, leap year, lunar month, millennia,
movement, origin, phase, respectively, ritual,
waning half, waxing half.
Exercise 1. You are to match the time units. Let's check. Number 1. Fortnight is F, a 2-week period. Number 2. Leap second is D, a second inserted in our local time to stay close to solar system. 3. Leap year, it's I, a year containing 366 days. 4. Lunar month, it's B, the time taken for the moon to undergo all phases. Number 5. Biennial is H, happening every other year. Decennial is J, happening every 10 years. The 7th, bicentennial, is A, happening every 200 years. Epoch is G, the beginning of a distinct period of history. Era is E, a long distinct period of history. Eon is C, an indefinite period of time. Which one can you see in the picture? Let's check.
The lunar month.
Exercise 2. Look at the pictures A and B and read the title of the text. How do you think they are related?
I think the pictures are related because they refer to objects in space. For example, picture A shows a lunar month and the cycle of the moon, and picture B shows Babylonian astronomers looking at a comet shooting through the sky. The title mentions centuries and 7 days.
What do you expect the text to be about?
I think the text might be about how the 7-day week began.
In exercise 3, you are to read the text and choose from the sentences which the best fits each gaps. There is one extra sentence. Gap 1 is D. They were ahead of their time with respect to astronomy and had been recording the movements of celestial bodies for centuries. The second is F. They added leap days as needed in order to ensure that the calendar consistently followed the phases of the moon. The third is A. In fact, the Babylonians observed specific ritual every 7th day as a way of honoring these celestial bodies. The fourth is B. The Babylonians, for instance, named Tuesday to Saturday after the 5 planets, while Sunday and Monday were named after the sun and moon, respectively. And the last is E. It is these names, rather than their Greek or Latin counterparts, that the modern English days of the week are based on. Now let's read the text and watch the video to check.
25 centuries of 7 days. The origins of the 7-day week can be traced back to the Babylonians of Mesopotamia. Their efforts to establish an accurate calendar led them to focus on 4 lunar phases: new moon, waxing half, full moon, and waning half. They determined that the moon takes roughly 7 days to move from one phase to the next, for a total of 28 days, or approximately 1 lunar month, to cycle through the phases. They added leap days as needed in order to ensure that the calendar consistently followed the phases of the moon. The number 7 also held special significance for the Babylonians. They believed that the solar system comprised the 7 celestial bodies that were visible to the naked eye: the Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, and Saturn, each of which represented one of their gods. They named Tuesday through Saturday after the 5 planets, while Sunday and Monday were named after the Sun and Moon respectively. The idea of a 7-day week spread to Egypt, Greece, and eventually to Rome. Since then, 7 days has been the accepted length of a week all over the world. The ancient Greeks referred to the days of the week as Theon Hemerai, or days of the gods. Later, the Romans called the days by the names of their own gods. The Anglo-Saxons, a Germanic tribe of Northern Europe, also used the names of their own deities to refer to the days of the week. It is these names, rather than their Greek or Latin counterparts, that the modern English days of the week are based on. In Anglo-Saxon, Monendag was named after the moon goddess, Mona, Tuesdag after the god of war, Tiw, and so on.
Exercise 4. You are to match the words in bold to their meanings. Positions are movements, shrinking, waning, equivalents, counterparts, stages, phases, beginnings, origins, expanding, waxing, practices, rituals, objects, bodies. In exercise 5, you are to say 2 things you have learned from the text. Listen to the opinion.
I have learnt that the 7-day week can be traced back to the Babylonians, and also that the days of the week are named after the planets, gods and goddesses, and the sun and the moon.
Exercise 6 is devoted to idioms with time collocations. You are to complete the sentences. Let's check. She was working against the clock to finish her assignment before the deadline. You started your essay at the 11th hour. How do you expect to finish before the deadline? I managed to beat the clock and submit my paper before our 10 a.m. deadline. I failed that exam twice, but as they say, 3rd time is a charm. I have just passed. If she continues spending carelessly, it'll only be a matter of time before she is broke. We are in a race against time to finish the roof before the rainy season starts. In exercise 7, we are to choose the correct item. Let's check. You are wasting your time applying for jobs online. It's much better to apply in person. We only have 3 days to prepare, so we needed to start immediately. There's no time to lose. I was only reading the magazine to pass the time while waiting at the dentist's office. We've just been marking time today, waiting for the party tonight. In exercise 8, you are to listen to a conversation between 2 students. For questions, you are to choose the correct answer.
Hi, Rosie. What are you reading?
Hello, Scott. It's a book all about timekeeping. I know that might sound a little dull, but it's really not. This morning I had a lecture about sundials and solar time. It was so fascinating that I came straight to the library to find a book and learn a little more about it. I'm a bit disappointed that I can't borrow the book, so I'm staying here to read it. Did you know that the time on a sundial doesn't always match the time on our clocks or watches?
Really? No, I didn't know that. I thought that sundials were a pretty accurate way of telling the time.
Well, they can be, but sundials show us the true solar time, not the time that we use on our watches. In fact, there can be a difference of up to 16 minutes between them. Sundials tell us the time based on the sun's position in the sky, if the weather is good enough to see it, of course. This is called true solar time. For example, solar noon is when the sun is directly up above us and at its highest point in the sky. However, this may not correspond to 12 o'clock noon on our watches.
Why is that though?
Well, one reason is that for us, there are exactly 24 hours in a day. But in reality, it doesn't take exactly 24 hours for the Earth to spin once on its axis. It's often a little more than 24 hours, but the time taken varies throughout the year, depending on the direction the axis is tilting. But we don't account for that during our timekeeping.
Oh, well that is very interesting. So why do we use a different time then?
Simply because it's easier for us, really, and helps us organize our lives. The way we measure time now was set back in 1884 at the International Meridian Conference. At the conference, they defined universal time, UT, and established different time zones. Various adjustments were made over the years, but then in 1972, leap seconds were introduced to help to keep our clocks as close to the true solar time as possible.
Wow, I didn't realize how interesting the subject is. When you first mentioned timekeeping, it seemed a bit difficult to understand, but I've actually learnt a lot while talking to you about it. In fact, maybe I should read that book when you've finished too.
Now let's check. At solar noon, the sun is high in the sky. What is true about the Earth? It spins on its axis once per day. Why were leap seconds introduced? To reduce the difference from solar time. Now you are to answer the questions. What is true solar system time? What happened in 1884?
True solar time is the time according to the position of the sun in the sky.
That's right. And in 1884, universal time and different time zones around the world were established at the International Meridian Conference.
In exercise 9, why did various calendars exist in the ancient world? What do you think made people change the way they calculated time? Listen to the discussion.
Why do you think various calendars existed in the ancient world?
Well, I think different civilizations chose to measure the passing of time in different ways. For example, the Babylonians focused on the lunar phases for their calendar, but some civilizations used the sun instead.
I agree. Plus, different cultures wanted to use different calendars to mark special events and celebrations. But what do you think made people change the way they calculate time?
Well, I think some people found early calendars inaccurate, as they didn't know when to hold important celebrations. Also, knowledge increased and they were able to use more advanced methods of measuring time.
That makes sense.
And your task is exercise 10. You are to collect information about various ancient calendars. Prepare and give a presentation about them. You are to write about what they were based on, how many seasons, months, days the year was divided into, and any interesting facts. Now listen to the model.
Back in the ancient world, it was more difficult to measure the passing of time. People measured months and years using a variety of calendars, each of which used the sun, moon, or the seasons as a guide. The Sumerian calendar dates back to about 5,000 years ago. It used 30-day months. However, the days were divided into 12 parts rather than 24. Each of these was then divided into 30 parts, each of which equated to approximately 4 minutes in modern-day time. The Sumerian calendar only had 354 days, so an extra month was added every 3 years or so to keep it in line with the solar year, similar to a modern leap year. The ancient Aztec calendar was a solar calendar that consisted of 2 main parts: a 365-day agricultural calendar, which was used for farming and daily life, and a 260-day sacred one, which was used for religious events. Interestingly, the Aztecs had a special period during the year, which was not included in the calendar. This was thought of as no time and was reserved for the celebration of life. The people of the ancient world had many different calendars, but they all relied on the cycles of nature which they could see around them, the sun, the moon, and the seasons. Their calendars may seem crude to us today, but really, our own system follows the same basic principles. The calendar which we use today is a solar calendar, which is based on an older lunar system.